If you've ever called yourself lazy, stop. If you've ever felt frustrated, guilty, or ashamed for starting something and never finishing it, stop. What you think is laziness might actually be your brain trying to protect you, and it's not your fault. Most people fight themselves instead of understanding why they resist change. They blame themselves for lacking discipline or willpower. But the truth is far more interesting and far more useful. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly why your brain resists change, why motivation disappears when you need it most, and how to stop punishing yourself for something that isn't a character flaw. By the end of this video, you'll see your habits, procrastination, and self-doubt in a completely new light. And you'll understand how to work with your brain instead of against it. So stay with me, because what you're about to learn could change the way you approach every goal in your life. We've all been told the same story since we were kids. If you don't wake up early, you're lazy. If you procrastinate, you lack discipline. If you quit, you're weak. This story is everywhere. It's in productivity books, hustle videos, social media, and motivational speakers shouting, "Just do it." And here's the problem. This story completely ignores how the human brain actually works. Your brain didn't evolve to chase goals, build habits, or maximize potential. Its number one priority is survival. Think about it. For hundreds of thousands of years, your ancestors' main goal wasn't to become rich, fit, or famous. It was to survive, to stay alive, avoid danger, and conserve energy. From the brain's perspective, survival means avoiding uncertainty, avoiding pain, sticking with what's familiar. So when you try to start a new habit, take on a big project, or chase something meaningful, your brain doesn't cheer you on. Instead, it reacts with, "This is unfamiliar. This is risky. This could cost energy or safety." And most people fight against that response instead of understanding it. They see it as laziness or weakness. But it's not. It's a protective mechanism, your brain's way of keeping you alive. Think about it this way. Your brain is like a security guard at a high-end building. Its job isn't to help you grow. Its job is to prevent anything risky from happening. Sometimes, that means it blocks things that are actually good for you. Let's define laziness properly. True laziness would mean you want to do nothing, feel fine about it, and experience no inner conflict. You're content with inactivity. But if you want to change, feel frustrated or guilty for not acting. That is not laziness. That is internal resistance. And resistance always has a reason. Your brain resists actions that it perceives as a threat. And threat doesn't have to mean life or death danger like a tiger. Threat can mean emotional pain, fear of failure, fear of success, loss of identity, uncertainty, past negative experiences. Your brain remembers pain far better than logic. That's why starting something new often feels impossible. It's why you can be excited to change your life on Monday morning. And by Tuesday, you're back to old habits. Let me give you an example. Imagine you've decided to start exercising consistently. You know it's good for you. You even feel motivated. But then Monday comes, and your brain asks, "What if you look stupid at the gym? What if you fail? What if this disrupts your routine?" Even though logically it's harmless, your brain perceives the unfamiliar activity as a threat. And it triggers procrastination, distraction, fatigue, anything to avoid the perceived danger. This is why just pushing through rarely works for long-term change. Your brain isn't broken. It's working exactly as it was designed to. Inside your brain, there is an ancient protective system. This system scans for danger, predicts negative outcomes, and shuts down action when risk is detected. It doesn't care about your goals, dreams, or potential. It cares about predictability. Let's use another example. Imagine you want to start a YouTube channel, change careers, go to the gym consistently, have difficult conversations. Logically, you know these are good moves, but your brain asks, what if I fail? What if I look stupid? What if this changes who I am? What if I lose what I already have? When your brain detects uncertainty, it activates protection. This protection looks like procrastination, distraction, fatigue, loss of motivation, suddenly doing anything else. Not because you're broken, because your brain is trying to keep things the same. Think of it like an internal alarm system. The alarm isn't smart, it just reacts. And until you learn to lower the perceived threat, it will keep going off every time you try to change. Motivation is often misunderstood. We treat it like a fuel that powers us through tasks. But motivation is not reliable. Why? Because it's tied to dopamine. And dopamine is about prediction, not reward. When your brain predicts high effort and only outcomes, emotional discomfort, dopamine drops. And when dopamine drops, tasks feel heavy, focus disappears, and everything becomes harder. This is why imagining change feels exciting. Your brain sees the fantasy and releases dopamine. But taking action feels impossible because the reality contains uncertainty. Your brain loves fantasy. It hates execution under uncertainty. That's why motivation is temporary. And that's why just push harder doesn't work for long-term success. Here's a critical point. Self-sabotage is not self-hatred. It's self-protection based on old data. Your brain learned patterns from childhood experiences, past failures, emotional wounds, environments where standing out wasn't safe. So when you try to grow, part of your brain says, last time this didn't end well. It pulls the emergency brake. You delay. You quit. You distract yourself. Not because you don't care, but because some part of you is afraid. Let me tell you a story. A client I worked with always wanted to write a book. Every time he tried, he'd stop after a few pages. He felt lazy, but when we mapped it out, we found that his brain remembered the ridicule he experienced in school for creative work. His procrastination wasn't laziness, it was self-protection. Once he understood this, the pattern changed. He started small, reduced the perceived threat, and slowly built consistency. Willpower is often treated like a moral quality, but it's actually energy, emotional capacity, nervous system regulation. If you are emotionally exhausted, stressed, overwhelmed, constantly self-critical, your brain will prioritize rest and safety, not discipline. Trying to force action with willpower is like pushing a car with the handbrake on. You'll burn energy and blame yourself when you fail. The solution isn't pushing harder, it's working with your brain. So what works? Not forcing, not shaming, not pushing harder. The solution is reducing perceived threat. Your brain moves when it feels safe, familiar, in control. Here's how. 1. Shrink the action. Make it so small it doesn't trigger fear. 2. Remove identity pressure. You're not becoming a new person. You're just testing a behavior. 3. Normalize discomfort. Discomfort is not danger. 4. Replace self-attack with curiosity. Ask, what is this resistance protecting me from? Even asking this question once can shift your entire perspective and make action feel possible. Instead of saying, I'm lazy. Say, my brain is trying to protect me. Instead of saying, why can't I just do it? Say, what feels unsafe about this right now? This doesn't make you weaker. It makes you strategic. Every time you reframe resistance this way, you reduce shame and increase clarity. You stop fighting yourself and start collaborating with your brain. When you stop seeing yourself as broken, shame decreases, clarity increases, consistency becomes possible. You stop fighting your brain. You stop punishing yourself for feeling resistance. And this is where real change begins. Not from pushing harder, not from willpower, and not from discipline alone, but from understanding how your brain works and working with it instead of against it.